myself.
Okay, thanks to Chrissy too.
Nope.
Okay.
Welcome to our March 18th, the day after St. Patrick's Day, Finance Committee meeting. It's too bad it wasn't yesterday because yesterday was the day to celebrate green and money is green and it just really blended well together. We'll begin with introductions. We'll start over here with
Jeff Hanley.
Molly Rogers,
Becky Fless,
Tony Veet.
Megan Carlson,
Sean Folk.
administrative staff, Beth Hopkins, superintendent,
Andrea Dish, business manager,
Gabe Dostie, Facilities Director.
Terry McGuire, Director of Technology.
Karen Moody, building principal at Lower Richmond School,
Vicki Duguay, Principal at Riverview Community School.
Angela Hardy, Director of Curriculum,
Katie Gould, Principal at Helen Thompson School.
Sarah Sims, Principal at Gardner Regional Middle School.
Sarah Bolden Ignasiak, Director of Special Services.
And we have a couple of administrators who are unable to make it this evening, other commitments are sick and they send their regrets.
excellent. We're going to begin our discussion on the 25-26 MSAD11 budget. I will pass it over to.
Great. Do you have anything you want to know? No. So we have been busy at work making some cuts. As you can see from the documents that I shared, actually, I'm going to share them to the screen so that others can. So as you can see, let me find the right page. Or as you can't see.
Right. Tiny print.
I know, I've got things in my way. Sorry.
Get that switch right behind your head. Thank you.
Oh my God, sorry.
Is that better?
Yep, it wasn't you, it was me. As you can see, from the expenditure articles that are enclosed in your packet, the budget is now up 5% from, I believe, 8.37, an increase of $1.6 million. So I'm going to review a few things with you. First of all, I'm going to go back to the first page in your packet, and I'm going to start reviewing the things that we actually cut. And then I'll review the others. So in Article 1, in regular instruction, we cut a piece of $2,000 fitness room equipment at the middle school. There were two classroom teacher positions cut, one at LER, actually 3 classroom teacher positions cut, one at LER, one at HT, and one an unfilled position at Riverview. And I'm going to let Pat discuss those if you want to discuss them now, or do you
Sure,
want
I
to
mean,
wait?
they're based on enrollment projections that we have for next year. And so looking at the enrollment projections and the sign up for kindergarten, we are not in need of the 3 kindergarten teachers that we have at Helen Thompson. If you'll recall, last year you added an additional teacher because of class sizes. Looking at next year, it's not going to be needed. At LER, we have currently 4 kindergarten teachers. We are not in need of 4 based upon those projections, and we'll be able to have reasonable class sizes with just 3 teachers. Looking at the unfilled position, we currently have an unfilled grade 5 position. However, what our need is for next year is at Riverview, we currently have 4 teachers in grade 5. We're going to not fill one of those. The position needs to be put down to grade 3. That's where the enrollment need is. However, what we'll be doing is transferring a teacher from LER grade 2 over to Riverview to cover that grade 3 position. Because of enrollment, we do not need 4 teachers in grade 2 at LER. Okay, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
A little confusing, it's a bit of a domino.
So the unfilled position is actually at.
Currently, the unfilled position is at Riverview.
Just, we're looking at the current enrollment at grade 2 of 69 and then
projected enrollment for next year, 47 in grade 2, is that?
Correct. So if you look at the
Yeah.
document that I provided,
Yep.
on the left, it shows the current number of students and the current staff ratio. So yes, you see that grade 2 currently has 4. But if you look over to the right, you will see that with only 47 students, that we're able to still maintain appropriate class sizes with just the 3. But we will still need 4 teachers for the current grade 2 as they move into grade 3 next year.
Just to move with them,
Yeah.
yeah.
So LER will go from having 13 teachers this year to 11 next year, and Helen Thompson will go from having 16 teachers to having 15 teachers, and Riverview will remain the same. And at Pittston, Pittston will remain the same as well. Last year you added a kindergarten position at Pittston Randolph, and based upon the projected enrollment, that 3rd kindergarten position will still be needed.
Lisa?
I am.
Yeah, fine. The numbers say it all.
Yep, there were additional miscellaneous instructional supplies from for regular classroom instruction rather, and about 4,800. So a total in regular instruction, Article 1 of 203,000 and change. Special education. Miscellaneous adjustments in 1,000 for 1,000, miscellaneous supplies for 4,700. An unfilled special ed tech position that actually Sarah filled. And as a result of her filling it, I was able to put in the budget the step and the insurance coverage that the person is actually taking, and was able to take a cut of 19.5. So that was a great cut. Elimination of special ed social worker, where it is being proposed that we're eliminating a social worker and special ed. That would be a cut of 81.8. Main care seed funds. Later on in the packet, I will share with you a history of our main care. After looking what special ed put in the budget, I am confident that we can cut 245,000 from the main care seed funds that were put into the budget. Total cuts in special education of 352,000 and change. Questions?
These if I may, these cuts, are they cuts to what was asked?
Yes.
It's not cuts to the existing budget. It's,
They're cuts to the both, right?
okay.
So they're cuts to both, because what the original budget includes are our current staffing levels and request for supplies for.
So I mean, this isn't a cut just to the requests.
No, this is cutting deeper than just the request.
Okay.
We are cutting existing positions in some cases.
So one of the things I mentioned at our meeting last time is that there, with the exception of a half-time custodian, there are no additional positions in the budget for FY26. So these are cuts to our, you're right, our existing staff. Okay.
Is the special ed social worker someone that could bill insurance?
Do you want to answer that? We do not currently bill
We don't,
for Medicaid.
Yeah.
There are lots of reasons. I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Lots of reasons why we don't bill.
Yes.
Because the main reason is years ago, we were audited by the Department of Education for our main care billing. At that time, we had our main care billing set out to a third party who all they did was main care billing. There were basically findings on us, but we were told there are findings on any school district who bills main care because our main care model, billing model, is not a school-based model. It is a hospital-based or medical-based. So what's happening is when we try to bill for main care, it's trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. The Department of Education has, or DHHS and the Department of Education have said for years that they're going to redo the main care billing. To date, it has not been, to my knowledge, has not been done. During that audit, the district received a fine, and as a result, the board at that time made the decision until main care billing rules are changed that we will not bill in main care. Now, it sounds like we're not getting funds from the feds. However, in the special ed ED 279 formula where we receive special ed funds, it's basically an expenditure-driven model, and those main care revenues are subtracted from that procedure. So it basically nets out the same. So you're not any more ahead or behind you're not any further ahead by billing for main care. And we're not risking being in non-compliance with main care billing.
Is that on the purple sheet, the special ed part? Is that what that is?
Did it say? I didn't, the purple sheet?
No, the purple sheet.
The main care,
Is that where special ed is? I forget it,
Main care?
keep going.
main care comes out of DHHS.
Yes, I know
Right?
that, yes.
So the only part of main care, the only part that hits the Department of Education,
Mhm.
sorry, I just lost my complete train of thought, is our portion of the state portion of main care that's deducted from our state subsidy. But it doesn't sit in the Department of Education. It's
Right.
kind of like a pass-through. So there shouldn't really be anything on the state purple sheet for main care.
Okay.
However, I don't think there should be anything, but anyway. Is that an answer?
You answered my question.
Sorry.
Yes.
It's like talking
you.
in circles.
Yes. No,
It's
you
just
answered my
so convoluted.
And I was just wondering, right, if it was a thing that we did have an income stream around or whatever, and then sort of secondary to like impact on students and families, but obviously.
I think it's based on what I was told, it's the need isn't there. Sarah, do you want to talk about this position?
So currently, special education has 2 social workers, one at the middle school and one at Helen Thompson School. Katie, Sarah, and I worked in collaboration to look at their schedules to see if there was a savings that could occur there without an impact to students who are currently receiving services, and we're able to do so. It does require some creativity and sharing, but we can make it happen.
So I just wanted to, Sarah mentioned there are 2 social workers, that's in special ed. However, we have lots more social workers who service our regular education model. And in addition to that, we also have counselors from Spurwink in our buildings,
In some of our buildings.
in some of our buildings.
And not in all of our buildings, and any vacancy that currently exists from Spurwink will remain unfilled
Gotcha.
moving forward, okay?
Interesting.
And we've added a BCBA position, but we're removing the
So-
social worker position.
The BCBA that was in the budget was not really a position. It was basically seed money to cover BCBA expenditures from the main care seed. Because the special purpose private school is actually billing DHHS for BCBA services, when we have to pay our portion, they have to be expended from BCBA. So that is where the seed money sat. So it is not an increase of a BCBA position. That is what is, it's not a position. It's just our portion of the main care money. I know that's a lot.
Right, no, I think I just misunderstood in
Yep.
last week's conversation.
Yep.
I thought it was a
Yep.
position,
No,
but it was the seed money. Okay.
okay, phew. Article 4, other instruction, miscellaneous adjustments, approximately 500. Again, the high school athletics found $2,700 in cuts in supplies and equipment. They agreed to cut game security in the amount of about $1,300. There's an ice machine that they cut that the main general uses, when the athletic trainer uses, that is being cut. A floor protector is being cut in the amount of $4,000. A sound system for athletics in the amount of $2,000. Baseball uniforms in the amount of $3,700. And there's a note to the side that athletic boosters purchased new uniforms in 2020. I thought it was 2020.
2020.
Yeah, it shouldn't say 2024. That's my bad. Basketball uniforms, a cut of $3,600. Track supplies, a cut of $1,000, and track uniforms, a cut of almost $5,000, bringing us to total other instructional cuts of almost $29,000. The next section is student and staff support, miscellaneous supplies, almost $300, miscellaneous adjustments, minus $529, total cuts in the amount of $828.60. And don't laugh at the next one, but I needed it to make things work. In system administration, there was a cut of $1.50. And again, that was a system reconfiguration for taxes. So that's it. Just when it straightened itself out, that's what it was. So the next expenditure article is school administration, a sound system at GRMS Gymnasium in the amount of $12,000. As you remember, the middle school does not have a sound system in its gymnasium, and Sarah cut that. We're hoping we might be able to find something. Miscellaneous adjustments in the amount of $4,900, and school admin supplies, a cut of almost $500. Total cuts, $18,000. Transportation, cuts were found in the amount of $62,700. We cut an unfilled driver position. Jeff and I met to review his budget. Because of route configuration or route consolidation due to the lack of drivers, this will leave him a driver for every single route, plus 2 full-time spares. And these are 2 full-time spare drivers that come to work every day with benefits. So that's what we've always had for full-time spares, so that we're comfortable that that's a cut we can make. Miscellaneous adjustments in the amount of $449. And there was $5,000 in there for new bus driver training. Jeff thought that he could cut $4,000 since they are training bus drivers in-house anyway, and we're not sending them to another program. So that was a cut that he was comfortable in making. Facilities maintenance, we found $428,000 in cuts. $1,800 in miscellaneous adjustments. Emergency lights at the middle school in the amount of $10,000 was cut. Fire panel replacement at Riverview in the amount of $12,600. Fire panel replacement at LER in the amount of $11,000. And emergency lights at LER were cut. And the reason they're cut is later on in this agenda, we are going to ask that we are able to take care of those safety issue items with contingency remaining in this year's facilities budget. So those items were all removed from the budget. A gym floor repair at LER in the amount of $38,000 was cut. The generator in this office is cut. What I'm going to say about that is in the event of a power loss in this office, we are going to have to, on a payroll week, we are going to have to think creatively about how we're going to do about 400 employees. Last time it was rather hair-raising, so we have cut that.
But you did it, Andrea.
I did it. I just pulled the Band-Aid off and did it. Siding replacement at Pittston, there's a cut of $30,000. A siding replacement at HT, Gabe said this is another project that can wait. That's another $30,000 cut. The roof repair at the high school, there was a cut of $189,000. This does leave 2 sections of roof repair at the high school. Section 5 and Section 5A are still in there. Inline fence, Hokefield, a cut of $20,000. Additional security, the conversation that we had last week about additional security at the high school. $51,000 was cut after additional conversation. Again, for total cuts in the amount of $428,000 and change. And there were no cuts in other commitments. So I want just to bring to your attention, because somebody's going to notice it, the total cuts are a little over $1 million. The number at the top of this page is wrong. I've changed so many figures on this sheet, and of course I forgot one. So in the upper right-hand corner up above, I'll show you what I'm talking about. This should actually be the same figure as at the bottom. My apologies for missing that. So let's see. The next sheet that I gave you is Pat wanted an easier sheet to see where we were between expenditure articles of the last version and this version. So that's exactly what you see in front of you. It's basically a summary version of the sheet that I just went over without the detail. So you should have all of the same information in a summarized format. And then you can see that, again, there are $1 million in change in cuts, and that equates to about 3.37% of what was overall proposed. On the next, sorry, Molly.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
About the 318.25 version, the
Yeah.
percentage difference, is that from the original amount or is that from last week's amount?
It is the percentage, you had to ask, I think it's the amount that was actually cut. So there's actually a formula in there, so it's basically the difference divided by the 1 year adopted. Are you following me? Or the budget. So the 637, the cut divided by the budget. So
I thought it was the current. So if you look at your expenditure articles after you remove the reductions, that's where it currently stands.
thank you. Sorry.
Lots of forms that you've been looking at.
Sorry. The next document that we're looking at is basically the increase overview that I provided to you at last meeting. And I have just gone through and redlined a few of the things that were cut. I have not made changes to all of the things. This is basically the same document. The only thing that I have done is redlined those things that we have removed. So no, I have not updated salaries. I just did not have time to do all that. Okay. The next item that you have is your main care seed, the expenditure history. So I just wanted to, when I was looking at to see whether we could make some cuts to this. Basically, main care seed bills us quarterly. So you can see that this is FY25 is the year that we're in. So they always start by billing us third and fourth quarter of last year, and then first and second quarter of this year. So you will see that we are still missing second quarter, but you will also see that our expenditures are still increasing. So I expect us to come in line with about $200,000 of main care of expenditures. This is $200,000 that will be removed, that the state will reduce from our subsidy, so that we need to make sure that we have that amount in expenditures to offset the reduction to subsidy. So this is a history, and what jumps out at me is how fast it grew. So if you look back in FY20, there were $29,000, although that's probably not a great year because that was a COVID year. But we were around 50,000, FY22 jumped to 83, FY23, we jumped to 142,000. Last year was 189,000, and I expect this year will be over the 200,000. Um,
For one moment, I'm sorry, I did walk in late, I'm so sorry for that. Can you just quickly tell me what seed expenditures are? Like,
Sure.
2 sentences or less.
So we send students who we can't provide programming, special ed students who we can't provide programming to, we send them to special purpose private schools. Some of those students are main care or Medicaid eligible. Those special purpose private schools are then able to bill main care Medicaid for the additional services that they receive. If you remember, for those of you who are familiar with main care Medicaid, when the way that it works is the feds pay a portion and the state pays the match. When we're talking about instructional students, school districts are required to pay the match for the state. And the way that the state does it is they pay the invoices or the claims from these special purpose private schools, and they make the reduction to our subsidy. Every quarter, we get a huge spreadsheet that Sarah reviews of every single student and every single service, and it's probably 40 pages long. So you'll see a student who receives speech, you'll see a student who receives OT, you'll see a student who receives PT, and the amount and the billing amount. It also includes the district share and the federal share. Sarah has to review that huge spreadsheet, and she's required to do so within a certain time frame, because if there are discrepancies, we only have a certain amount of time to bring those discrepancies to the state. And then once that is done, once Sarah has reviewed, she lets me know, and then I basically make that adjustment from our subsidy and charge those expenditures in those sheets to our budget. The following year, they will go through the ED 279 special ed formula. So basically, it will help fund our special ed budget as part of our state subsidy in another year. I know that's a lot, but that's really how it works.
Actually, you explained it really briefly, very
Great.
clear to understand. Thank you, I appreciate that.
You are welcome. What else do we have?
So it's just a huge. Yeah, in 6 years, it's gone 150,000.
Our number of special ed placements, the number of special ed out of district placements that who qualify for main care. And I guess I'm happy that if anybody could be happy about main care. Because for the students who aren't main care Medicaid eligible, we are on the hook for 100% of those additional services. So I know it's a lot. We track it separately only because it affects our subsidy directly. So we just make sure that we have enough to cover our subsidy.
And I would ask Sarah, is there anything we want to add to that to answer Jeff's question?
I would say out of district placements have improved their billing practices. They regularly reach out to me about something in the IEP not making it through however they do their billing, and we have to have a conversation about that, and they might have to adjust a word or two. So they've improved their practices over time to maximize what they're able to get reimbursed
Increase in the
for.
number of students that are involved.
Are we increasing the number of students?
We have more students now than we did 5 years ago placed out of district. But conversely, I don't know how far back you can go and see it before 2020. We have the same number now that we had when I first started in administration 8 years ago. So we dipped and then we've come back up. So.
Pat reviewed the projected ratios and staff levels. I don't know if anyone has additional questions regarding. So this again brings us to the expenditure articles that I reviewed at the top of the meeting. We are currently, again, at an increase of 1.6 million or 5%. And if you're looking at that on the budget worksheet, if you scroll to the bottom, we are still looking at a 1.8 million actually $1,862,770 increase to the 4 communities, or 13.86% over the current year. Questions? No, that's them.
And of course, as in years past, this is not the final budget. We are continuing to refine, to assess. The high school is in the process of finalizing their enrollment for classes next year. And those class sizes will help us determine our staffing levels that we need next year. So that work is still to be done. And other conversations continue with administrators to see where in the existing budget can further reductions be made. But we don't have a lot of wiggle room at this point. We've talked about that in the past. Really, potentially you're looking at staffing positions that will correspond to enrollment. So as our enrollment declines, then we need to make some adjustments as a result. Administrators are being incredibly creative and trying to think outside the box about what can be done. We all know that one of the best steps that we could take moving forward as a district is some form of consolidation. Operating the 4 elementary schools is very expensive. And if you want to see real savings down the road, you're going to need to have that conversation. I know that you're waiting for the DOE to publish their construction list. And that will give you some direction. So we'll wait, we'll see what happens in June when that particular list is released. But if you're not on the list for construction, I would encourage that the board come back to that conversation and discuss how to move forward, because you're going to continue having these budgetary concerns and these budgetary challenges unless you find another way of consolidating some of your services.
Do we have a sense of what that savings would look like with consolidating?
We, at this point, have not done a in-depth job really concretely defining what that would be. Without blinking, and just very quickly identifying the savings, we came up with $1 million just like that.
There's a lot of reduction in services with libraries,
Redundancy,
cafeteria. I mean, all of those things that we're looking at, right?
Redundancy.
Yep. The next meeting, I will review with you. Pat and I were talking about it either this morning or yesterday morning. We were talking about carry forward or unallocated fund balance. I will go over that with you. It is not my recommendation to use additional fund balance. Last year, we used an additional $700,000 that we actually plugged with the reserve account with special ed. We haven't had to dip into that, but I will share with you on that spreadsheet why it is not my recommendation to use additional carry forward. And if you're reading the local newspapers, you will see other school districts who are struggling with their carry forward, and I would hate to find us in the same situation as others. It's, it's a precarious thing. There's a temptation to buy down the local share, but these are uncertain times. When I first started here, there were curtailments. So for those of you who aren't familiar with what a curtailment is, it's in the middle of your year after the state promised so much in subsidy, making reductions to subsidy, and school districts either having to plug that subsidy hole, either with carry forward or having to cut things in the middle of the school year. And that's hard to do. There are contracts that prohibit us from just making cuts and there are ramifications for doing so. So it's important that we have some wiggle room, but I will share that with you. I will put it on the agenda for our next meeting for us to further discuss so that you can see what I see. You are on budget?
I just had one other thing. I don't know how much work it was from last year, but I know you've done a little spreadsheet on home values in each community and like the expected contribution at a given level or whatever.
I have the information for that, Tony. I am trying not to have people swallow their tongue. I don't really know that doing that based on our initial
Gotcha, yeah.
budget is a
The right,
great thing to put out there. I would rather, as we start to settle in,
Right.
or the board is
The-
comfortable, I will be happy to do that, but
as we get through this process and
Mhm.
hammer out what we're really talking about. And not-
I mean, what we provided to you last time was our raw budget. At that point, there had been no cuts
Yeah.
made to the budget. I just want to make sure that everyone understands what we're looking at, and that is not the budget that we are necessarily recommending. It is the budget that was created.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Perfect.
And thank you for over 80% in a week.
Yeah.
Yep. So I've gone through, I think, all of the documents that I have regarding the budget as it now stands. Are you transitioning to the next item? or-
Yes.
I don't know. Are you ready to transition? Do you want more of a conversation regarding the budget at this time?
Overall, 13.8%.
Mhm.
Today.
From the existing, the current.
Today.
Last week's proposal was 2.2%.
Yeah, I know.
So it's dropped to.
I spent 2 hours watching the last week.
Good.
Best viewing I've ever had.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'm just want to make clear. Thank you.
Any other questions? Then we need to transition.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is federal awards. So I just wanted to, with things being in so much flux and so many conversations in the newspaper, I just wanted to bring something to your attention. In front of you, I have listed all of our federal grant awards, actually the major federal grant awards for this year. And if you look at the bottom, they total almost $1.3 million. I just want to make people aware, there is nothing in our local budget to, in the event that we lose funds, there is nothing in our budget to capture funds lost. So federal grants, we have IDEA, local entitlement, and you can see that it's used to serve children and youth with disabilities. We currently use that to fund 18 special ed tech positions. In addition to the special ed techs and staff that are in our budget. We also have the ESEA grant, Elementary and Secondary Education Act. There are several components of it that Angela oversees. Basically, it's to provide equal access to education and address achievement gaps, particularly for students from low-income families. We receive 3 major grants, Title I funds. This year, our allocation is $535,447. We currently use Title I funds to fund 6 Ed Tech 3 specialists who basically serve math and reading, as well as 3, which is the equivalent of 2.4 FTE Title I professionals. So these would be teacher members, and those also serve students in reading and math. We have ESEA funds. We have Title II funds. Our current allocation for this year is $119,000, and it focuses on improving teacher and principal quality, effective educators. There's also a component for class size reduction. We are currently using part of those funds to pay for one of our classroom teachers to actually reduce class sizes at, this year it's at LER. Next year, it's going to be moved to Riverview. So they actually fund one of our teachers. And funds are also used for some professional development opportunities, but most of the grant is eaten up with the class size reduction teachers. And then we have Title V, which is again, I'm sorry, the allocation is up almost 60,000, 59 and change. And that's to increase student academic achievement. And that is currently used to fund an EdTech 3 specialist at Helen Thompson School. So if you add all that up, there's almost 1.3 million in federal funds. Angela, do you want to mention any, do you want to add?
So the Title I and Title V, it's actually Title IV that we get granted and a little bit of Title V. We move Title IV into V because it's flexible that way. And then that covers a staff position. Title I and Title V are staff for our required federally mandated intervention program. So when students are struggling to learn and data suggests that they're struggling, and despite the efforts of our classroom teachers, what we call a tiered intervention process, they continue to struggle. So they're usually 1.5 to 3 years behind grade level. A little bit lower if you're identified in kindergarten, then they're operating below pre-K typically. They have an opportunity to have intensive intervention daily with someone who's very skillful in math or literacy, without distractions, right? And then we have proven that when they do that and we get them early enough, we can get their skills up to a place where they can then access their grade level curriculum efficiently and eventually exit the program. So that type of program is federally mandated. So for schools that qualify, which is all of our schools at elementary level except for Helen Thompson, because of their free and reduced lunch rates. So Helen Thompson for 3 years or more fell below a certain percentage in their free and reduced lunch rates. So they're no longer federally qualified, so we don't get Title I dollars for them. However, the law states that if you have these programs in Title I schools, you are mandated to have comparable programs in non-Title I schools. So those schools still have students who struggle. And so we fund the non-Title I school with one person funded locally and one person funded through Title V. So we are concerned because these dollars that Andrea is outlining here are this current year's dollars. We still haven't been allocated dollars for the next school year. Usually it's done in January. Last year was an anomaly and we were provided that data in April. That's pretty late when you're trying to set a budget. We have the only allocation, preliminary allocation, which means we think we're going to give you this amount, is Title V. So, but again, we can't fund a full staff person with Title V alone. We need Title IV's allocation so I can move it into Title V. So that's what it's for. If the dollars don't come in as anticipated and the law doesn't change, we're required to have this service. And I don't know how we're gonna do it. Let's be frank. So we're waiting to find out. And then class size reduction is exactly as Andrea suggested. It's a very little amount. We talk about it in curriculum every single year. As soon as the allocations come in, I give you a year over year. I outline every single thing. You review it in the curriculum committee to make sure that it falls within the regulations and that you find that the purposes are suitable. And we go through this process just like you're doing here. We do that in curriculum as well. But I don't have those numbers. But any other questions about that?
So Pat said that funds are secured for at least
Yeah.
18 months.
They're forward funded, so the state has access to FY 26 funds. However, they're not, my understanding, and it could be flawed, my understanding is they're not yet releasing the preliminary allocations until they understand if any of the rules are going to change. And given the changes happening at the federal Department of Education, there's a chance that some rules could change. If the rules change, that changes potentially the funding formula, or it changes how we're allowed to use the funds, and therefore they're going to hold the preliminary until they can get that squared away. But that may be flawed understanding because everything seems to change right now pretty quickly, and I don't wanna be quoted on something in the paper saying it's one thing when I'm only sharing with you my novice understanding of the changing factors and that we're looking forward to our preliminary allocation. So we should be receiving funding within a range of what we've been receiving. There is a rule that says if you're going to receive significantly less, if you're anticipated to receive significantly less funds year over year, there's a percentage that they step you down year over year so that you can't just cut you dry. So like, and I don't remember the percent, let's pretend it's 10%. They can only cut you up to 10% year over year so that you can kind of plan for that change. Again,
I think it's fair to say with things in flux, there are some rules that we don't know what the future brings. And I just wanted to bring this to your attention so that you are aware of the monies that we receive from the feds and how we are using those positions, and that there is nothing in our budget to cover this in the event that we should lose those federal monies.
and just in case any of our staff are listening, I am considering, like, if we were to lose 10%, how would we manage the system? And do the most we can with the people we have employed. And so like that is, I am working on a plan. And if we have to get to that place.
And we have no reason to think that we will not be getting our FY 26 monies. It's just, there are a lot of things currently in flux. So we just wanted to share this with you so that it was on your radar so that you wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, and really every day it changes, but right now, I think the only one that I'd be a little bit more concerned about is Title II. Because that's really considered professional development. And so if you're very, very far removed from the classroom, it might seem like it has a different kind of impact in schooling than Title I, where you're providing interventions directly to students. But that is where our class size reduction teacher sits. So it is something Andrea will want to pay close attention to, because if for some reason that does change in any way, we will either remove some professional development in order to maintain class size reduction teacher, or we'll have to come up with a game plan.
Yeah, add a
Yeah.
teacher to the budget. Is there anything that you want to add, Pat?
No, I think you put that.
Excellent. Sorry, Michelle. Oh, sorry.
No.
Doesn't matter.
So I want to go back to something you said, just to kind of better understand it, if it's okay. You said that, is it Helen Thompson does not qualify for the Title I?
Correct.
So this aid is determined by the percentage of our school students that qualify for free and reduced lunch?
Correct.
What is the percentage what is that benchmark percentage that?
40% to qualify over 3 years running.
And just out of curiosity, I know that it's the law in Maine now that every student can get free or reduced lunch regardless of income. Is
There's
that,
an alternate process. We're in I just this moment forgot the title, but we're in a provisional status, our district, which is actually good for us. So what that means is every 4 years, we submit free and reduced lunch paperwork. We were required to, even if the cost is free for all. It's a tracking mechanism. And so our paperwork is sometimes hard to get back for lots of reasons. People have a lot of pride and might not want to fill that paperwork out. there could be concerns about whether it really is confidential, and it is. Or they might not feel like they qualify or have a need to fill it out. There's lots of reasons people make those choices.
Or now, because every student is receiving free lunch regardless of the paperwork, they do not see the need. And it not only affects us in our federal grants, it also affects us on our ED 279. So if you were here, the meeting that we reviewed, the ED 279, there are two places in the ED 279 that actually funds the district based on our free and reduced application rate. And it's a struggle. It's not only a struggle in MSAD11, it's a struggle across the state. And all school districts are having the same issues that we are talking about. The Department of Education knows that we are having issues with free and reduced lunch. They've been looking at alternative ways of trying to collect this data, such as main revenue, looking at the poverty levels in each of the counties, but there's a struggle between, it's my understanding, with revenue not wanting to release the data that they have because everyone files a tax return, not wanting to share the data with the Department of Education. So they are working that out, but it has definitely gotten worse as far as getting our paperwork back since the state is guaranteeing a free lunch for every student.
So that is why we actually applied for this program called a special provision program. So it allows us to do the free and reduced lunch once every 4 years. And in the intervening years, years 2, 3, and 4, we do it's like a Google form survey. So it's quick, it's easy, you can do it on your phone really fast. And it basically says, here's the criteria, do you qualify? We track that over time. Is it going up? Is it going down? We report that information. It's anonymous, it's confidential, anonymized data. And we are finding that those rates are a little bit higher, but at least stable. And then so what the state did do, that only affects some of the title dollars. It doesn't go impact the ED 279 process that Andrea gets to deal with. They were able to get approval to change the formula at the level I work with to be a direct cert rate. So families who have direct certification with the state for services and funding, right? Times a multiplier. So it's like 1.4 times whatever our direct cert rate is in each school. That will get us our percentage to get us Title I funding temporarily. And what happens is that's to our benefit.
That makes sense, but so you're saying that you can coordinate with like DHHS for any families that, okay.
So
I misunderstood
we don't touch that, and
Okay.
so that's where food service comes in. So Linda gets a report, so that way we don't have that information because it's super confidential, right? So she gets a report of a nice little table that says currently your direct cert rate per school plus your free rate and your reduced rate, if your paperwork is still accurate, equals this. And we get it for every school and we get it every month, and we kind of monitor that. If we're noticing any trends up or down in our system, movement, families.
So for those of you who are unaware, Direct Cert applies to or refers to those families who are receiving SNAP or who are main care eligible, or I'm trying to think of the other direct foods.
TANF?
Thank you. Yep. So Linda gets, and she's right, it's an actual download from DHHS of those students who are directly certified.
And all I see is a number. So what is the number? What is your direct cert rate? And then I use the multiplier to help figure out what does that mean for us in terms of allocations. I will say the direct cert rate has been in our favor. So for us, that the state getting approval to use that multiplier to fund or calculate funding for Title I is a benefit to us as a district.
Thank you for that education. I appreciate it.
Molly, did you still have a question?
Just wondering whether there was any update about insurance this year.
No. Oh, do you have one?
Well, no, but Becky had a question, and I just thought maybe we should stay with the same topic. first,
Oh, yeah.
that's all, yeah, no, that's all.
No, it's not a question, actually. I attended a full plates, full potential
Mhm.
Zoom today. I don't know if you all.
Great program.
Maine is slated to lose $10 million in federal dollars for food next year. So that's gonna probably have a significant impact.
At one of the MSMA conferences, they were looking at actually expanding full plate, full
Mhm.
potential before the reduction, so I
Yeah.
think
So I think they're
That's-
trying to
yeah,
do that,
yeah,
but that's where we're slated right now.
we'll.
And so then if there are no other questions about that, back to Molly, yeah. So typically, Molly, we receive that information the very end of March, the beginning of April. So hopefully within the next 2 or 3 weeks, we will have it, but it is not uncommon for the board to be in the process of approving your final budget. And that's the day that the percentage is released for health insurance.
So we'll actually get 2 percentages. I'm hoping that, and I have the date on my calendar, the first date that we will receive will be the maximum amount of increase that districts can expect. While the email we received talked about a 17% overall increase to health insurance, it does not take into effect the amount that the MEABT will buy down the plan. So where I'm hoping that they'll at least provide us with that max rate. The next, and Pat's right, the next communication from Anthem will be direct communications directly to districts. We all have individual rates, so while we all have the same plan, my Choice Plus premium here might be different than the amount that Halldale pays or the amount that Augusta pays. And that's all based on our experience and usage, so anyway.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Questions? Any more questions about federal grant awards? Okay. The next item on the agenda is a request to increase the flexible spending accounts, the medical contribution rate. So for those of you who maybe have heard us talk about this in the past, the district has an FSA plan that we allow our employees to participate in. So there is no employer contribution. Annually, employees elect either to participate in a dependent care, which is putting money aside for either for daycare or adult. I don't want to call it daycare, but that's really what it is.
Adult care.
Adult care. Thank you.
Adult care.
And then their other plan is for medical contributions. So because both of these plans have tax implications, the IRS sets an annual maximum of the amount that employees are able to contribute to on an annual basis. And in FY '25, that maximum rate is $3,300. Last year, I came to the board and I came to the finance committee and asked the finance committee to increase the allowable contribution from $1,500 to $3,300. And originally, we had set a maximum of $1,500, which was less than the IRS allowed, because we thought that in the event that an employee leaves mid-year, that it would leave the district open to liability. We have had, and what I mean by that is if an employee opted to participate in an FSA, and when you participate in an FSA, let's say I opt to participate and contribute $1,500 on day 1 of the plan, I'm able to spend $1,500 through the FSA plan, and then have contributions withheld from my paycheck for the remainder of the year. In the event that an employee left midway or something happened, the district would be responsible for the amount that the employee did not contribute. I am not seeing that. In fact, I am seeing quite the opposite. So on the other end of this, employees have 12 months to spend the amount that they have deducted from their paycheck. And then there's a 3 months that they, 3 months after the plan end date, that they're able to submit those contributions. If employees do not spend the amount that they had elected within that time frame, they forfeit the amount of their contributions. And what I'm seeing is the district not having to cover, but rather we are seeing large amounts of forfeiture of employees. And by federal law, I am not allowed to return that back to the employees. It gets recorded on our books as miscellaneous revenue. So I am here to ask the board or the finance committee to consider setting the healthcare FSA rate at the IRS rate, whatever that's going to be. I do know that they have another increase schedule for next year for FY26. I think it's already been announced. But I think that it would help employees who have significant medical needs. They're able to use those funds to pay for premiums for healthcare or copays for pharmacy as well as other medical needs that they have. Some dental
expenses.
dental, glasses, vision, and I think it's a wonderful thing. We probably only have about, I would say 20% of our employees who participate, but anyway.
So you need a motion for that, and what you're asking for is rather than setting a dollar amount, just set it at whatever the IRS rate is.
Correct.
I have a question, sorry. When, I'm familiar with it, I've used FSH before, but my question is, so an employee elects to have the 3,300 and that gets put into an account. Are we responsible for paying that management company right up front, or it comes through their?
There is no expense for, we do not pay the administrator anything to administer our FSA plan. So they do everything, and then at the end of the 15-month period, they just send us the forfeiture check for those employees who have not spent their deducted amount.
As a contributor, I have a fee that I have to pay to participate above and beyond the amount that I can withdraw. And so that would be the amount that the company collects to cover its costs to operate the program.
So if they're front loading the account essentially on day one. But that is not money that we have to physically put into their account.
There is no expense of this plan to the district. You're welcome.
I would move that we adjust our contribution to the IRS rate.
And I just want, oops, sorry, go ahead.
I second that motion.
I just want to say that, I just lost my thought, sorry, that this will override the amounts in those collective bargaining agreements. I've noticed that in some CBAs, there is an amount, so I just want us to be aware that the decision here will, and like I said, there's no cost to the district. I think it's a wonderful thing.
So if it's in our CBAs, would we need to adjust that language?
No, probably not until the next.
Once the contract is opened, you'll want to
Okay.
adjust
I mean, I
it.
wouldn't want to open it now because then you have to do all kinds of different
Correct.
things. All right, yeah. So we have a motion and a second. Any questions? All those in favor?
Thank you.
I vote or no?
No.
No. So just want it noted, I'm not voting against it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
The last item on the agenda is something I touched upon earlier. The request to use the $50,000 in facilities contingency to take care of the safety issues that we are having. As a reminder, typically we have $150,000 in each budget year 50,000 is, actually, it's placed in the 3 places we're most likely to use it. 50,000 is placed in facilities, 50,000 is placed in special ed, and 50,000 is placed in instruction. I know that we have had quite a few things that we've taken care of that weren't in the budget. So I spent a long time looking at Gabe's budget. What I can say right now is there's significant savings in the utilities and natural gas and some of the other places to make up, to not only make up for what we have spent to take care of the high school project and the middle school bathroom project. I'm confident that we have this in the budget. Typically, I like to leave whatever remaining in the facilities budget to go to carry forward into unallocated carry forward or an unallocated fund balance. But I would really like to remove these from our budget and address these safety concerns at this time rather than wait. So we're asking permission.
That's mine. Like it too.
Is it possible to complete in this budget cycle? And I only ask because of what we learned last week.
Yes, that's the answers I'm getting from the 2 contractors. Yep, so we can definitely.
They promise.
Get them cleared up. We're hoping to be able to do all the emergency lights during April break.
Yes.
And there's a good potential I can get the fire.
If in the event that we are unable to actually invoice out of this year's budget, we will make a point of making you aware.
Okay.
Okay.
What's the total for this?
Less than 50,000. So if you look at, let's see,
Yeah, I remember seeing it, I just.
What's that, I think?
How much?
Those 3 safety things, yeah.
those 4 safety things.
Or-
So
or-
I'm counting 22.
I didn't count that one, yeah, 39.6.
There you go. Thanks, Tony.
39.6. Your public school now is kicking
Yeah,
in.
it's-
I love
Thank
that.
you.
So I would love to entertain a motion from someone on the finance committee. I'll make a motion to spend that money.
I'll make a second.
Second, for the 39,000. Thank you. I'm gonna give it to them.
Sure.
Motion. and
Oh, I'm
second.
sorry, I didn't.
No. Motion and second. Decide how it goes. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Motion carries.
Thank you. On our next finance agenda, I've added carry forward. I'd also like to bring the school nutrition budget. Is there anything else that you would like for us to bring other than additional reductions?
Additional reductions.
Is there any conversation needed on the audit? The energy? Have we approved?
Oh, the EMC.
So there's 150,000 in your budget currently for a lease payment, or in next year's budget for lease payment. If you would like to discuss it further, then we can either bring it back to finance or you can have that conversation at budget at the board level.
Board meeting, that's up to you if you want to revisit it, but finance has already decided to engage with EMC just on the lighting side of their proposal.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what has been built into the budget. But it has not yet, has it gone to the full board?
No, it hasn't.
Okay, so it needs to go to the full board. So, speaking of the board, a question for all of you as we think about your next meeting. We are in need of a special board meeting, so that you can interview a building administrator for a building administrator position. Is it possible to tag team this meeting on the 18th, so you're not out twice next week?
I mean, the
Today's the 18th.
25th.
Oh, it's today the
It
18th,
is.
sorry, the 25th. Would that work?
It would add how much to the meeting, honestly?
Well, it all depends on how long the board wishes to engage in a conversation with the candidate
Makes sense to.
to
Yeah,
tag team it. So if we're able to do that at 5 and then have finance immediately follow
Mhm.
conclusion of that meeting, that would work for you? Okay, great, thank you very much.
Is it safe to set a finance committee agenda for 5:30, hoping that we have a prompt start?
Yeah,
I would think so.
I
I
would
can't
think that.
imagine that there would be
I would think so.
All right.
that
Okay.
much of a.
I have nothing else.
What? All right, then, we will adjourn at, there's no clock, 6:13. We are such creatures of habit. I'm gonna adjourn at the blank wall time.
And then Tony and Becky, we are
Thank you, everyone.